This is Dean Phillips, and I am your host today for Longevity Industries' presentation of the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. Our podcast is brought to you today by the Precision Metal Forming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation. They are our sponsors and also happen to be the organization that Jagemann, who is our podcast guest today, and Kurt Zipperer, who is the Director of Sales, I have with me today. Kurt, thank you very much for taking the time to be on our podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's great to have you here. I look forward to your insight into the destiny of manufacturing and where we think we're going to be 5 years from now. First thing I'd like to do is please tell the audience a little bit about yourself and Jagemann.
For my side of the story, I entered the manufacturing realm approximately 30 years ago, almost exactly, and in the manufacturing facet of the business, moving through various areas of manufacturing and eventually moving into the sales arena. Jagemann Stamping is a full-service stamping company. We offer deep draw stamping from a progressive side, the transfer, and also fine blanking, as well as we also have a division that offers plastic overmolding and insert molding as well.
Excellent. And when you say you got into the business that many years ago, tell me a little bit about what drew you into manufacturing.
Actually, manufacturing, I think, is really the lifeblood of an economy, and it was something that was always interesting to me, the mechanical side of things. I was very fortunate to have a great manufacturing company like Jagemann in my hometown area. They were known as a world leader in what they were doing in deep draw stamping and a world-class operation. So I was fortunate to be able to enter into that, and my interest in mechanics and those types of things kind of naturally progressed into the metal forming industry. And it's just been a great opportunity to really work with customers globally, really have a broad view and work with some really innovative and amazing products.
Terrific. That's great to hear. I think that outlook on manufacturing is one that once it gets into your bloodstream, I think it's hard to get it out. I think once you've actually seen the manufacturing of something and watched something be created like that, it's an exciting process, and I think that's kind of the excitement we need to get our younger students back into manufacturing.
I very much agree with you, and we really encourage that. We are very aggressive in programs, working with schools, both even as early as pre-high school, high school, collegiate programs, and really introducing young people into manufacturing and what it is. There are a lot of misconceptions about what manufacturing is in today's world. It's very high tech. It's not what somebody may have thought of what maybe their grandparents or had done at one point, or that view that so many people had. It's a very high tech environment.
Yes, and one that constantly is changing too. I think the landscape of what people used to think and even thought of 10, 15 years ago has changed on what manufacturing can be, especially when you talk about things like additive manufacturing, like 3D printing, where that's going to take us in the future. And let me switch gears a little bit and ask you about what you feel as far as the 5-year picture. What do you think manufacturers are looking for 5 years from now? What are they going to expect differently from you?
And Dean, I think you've touched on that and exactly what you've described. It is evolving. It's continually evolving. Just things a few years ago that may have been, almost on paper, but maybe not in the real world yet, are here and moving forward every day. I really think where the industry is going is something you've described as additive manufacturing. A lot of secondary operations in the process, specifically about metal forming. The tolerancing that we can achieve in today's world is ever increasing. The level of accuracy, depending on the type of product and the end use, but overall, throughout all of our product groups, whether it be automotive or industrial maybe a consumer application even. The tolerancing is so much tighter than it had been. The product is so much better. The machinery, the equipment that we're using, servo equipment, the technology is really pushing the envelope. And what the customers are looking for is a much more complex product, a much more tightly toleranced product. In some cases, secondary operations that are going to move the product to the next level or actually finish the product maybe beyond the press. And in addition to that, we have many, many processes that can be done in press as well that you maybe not traditionally would have thought of as a stamping process. So in a nutshell, it's really a heightened level of product, a tighter tolerance, and also added processes within the actual stamping process as well.
I think that's really exciting, and I think that people in manufacturing have a lot to respond to. There's some changes that we see within additive. We've, as you mentioned, there's been a lot of things that we do in die, whether it's in die tapping or secondary processes in die welding. There's so many new things and new technologies out there that we're incorporating so that there's another process we're eliminating downstream so that we can build one complete part earlier in the stage and deliver a more value added product to the end user.
Absolutely.
Do you think that there's anything specific that you can think of as far as how to get people into our workforce? Are there any? I know that you say that you work with some of the schools, but do you have any specifics of what those students are looking for, or how we can better attract them?
I think that our company, as well as many out there, have similar programs. So what we're doing is really sharing with them and giving them the opportunity to come in. We're actually bringing people in of many, many ages. We have programs here where we're doing internships that already starts all the way back into a high school setting, all the way up through college. I think the biggest thing is to get them physically exposed to what manufacturing truly is today, whether that be physical visits to your facilities, job fairs, being able to share that. And I think that it's across the board. Manufacturing in general, we really need to be out there and sharing with the workforce in general, not even just the young people, but the workforce, what manufacturing looks like. Now, you mentioned earlier, it's an exciting time to be in manufacturing. There's so much innovation, be it the actual stamping itself. I mentioned servo presses, things like that. We can control timing now. We have so many more opportunities to have these additional operations within the equipment, and the environment is much different, I think, than the average person has this visualization of. These are very high tech, very clean, controlled environments. This is not a blacksmith shop, if you will. This is a very high tech environment, and very high tech equipment that you're working with as well. And I think that a lot of people just don't realize that maybe a lot of their aptitudes and interests really do parlay well into a manufacturing setting.
Right. It's when I've worked with some of the students in some of the schools, I've found that it is amazing how their interests really do lie within being creative and coming up with new things. I was never an advocate at one time of STEAM, which is different than STEM curriculum, which adds the arts to it. And I never saw the place for it originally. But now with additive and some of the 3D printing, I certainly see that there is a need there for an artistic level there where some of the students get involved with thinking outside of the box, being very creative, because the shapes that you can form in additive are not a shape that you would have thought of in traditional manufacturing. Do you see that opportunity there as something that we can really leverage in the future?
I truly do, and I think that you've really touched on something good there. Manufacturing again has changed so much. It's not what we thought of even just a few years ago. Every day we're looking at new opportunities and technologies to so much improve the end product. just as you've described, the fact that there may be some opportunities that only a short time ago would have not been feasible in a traditional, be it either a metal forming or a manufacturing or whatever it may be the application. But there's so many opportunities now, and that think outside the box is really a key. We're ever evolving, and it's happening at a very fast pace. Just like the rest of the world, there's so many things that only 5 years ago we couldn't have even imagined, and today are commonplace. It's the exact same in the manufacturing. In fact, we're really leading that. I mean, we're seeing the front of all those great things that the consumer is enjoying, and we're on the front of that. And that's through all those creative minds and that those concepts, seeing reality and being able to brought to fruition.
Yeah, one of the things that I found really interesting, even last year at the Consumer Electronics Show, when they were producing these refrigerators with cameras built in and basically a tablet attached to it, to where it was telling you the time of day, the weather outside, all that kind of information. And then it would also, since it was connected to the internet out there, that it was able to show you whether or not there was milk in the refrigerator with a camera internally. I found that so interesting. Do you think that we're going to go in that same direction with through the Internet of Things into building more sensors into our products, building more high-tech feedback, and somewhat closing the loop on the information that we provide to people? Do you see that as something that we're going to do more of?
Absolutely. And one of the realms we're very much involved in the automotive market, and you're seeing every year you're seeing more and more of the same type of technologies you've described as your refrigerator. Your car is going to do very similar things it already has. You can now, you'll get messages that you have an oil change due, or maybe you have a maintenance issue. You'll actually be notified of those things, and it's a very similar application. And we're seeing much of that. So everything you're seeing right now today that you can purchase, on the dealer's lot, we're already years ahead in some cases, and there's never been a time where technology is moving faster. And staying within an automotive realm, we're working on projects every day for evolving technologies. It's really the consumer experience of the vehicle itself, and it's feedback from the vehicle as well. At one time, we simply had input into how the vehicle is going to function, and now the vehicle is actually giving us feedback as to either the environment around us, what it needs as far as a maintenance standpoint, things like that, but also it's assisting us in our driving. So there's never been a time where technology is moving at a faster pace, and I absolutely agree that we're going to see that more and more, and at a much faster pace than people even realize. Things that seem very fanciful only a short time ago are reality, and we're going to see it much more quickly than people realize.
Yeah, I can see that also. Do you happen to, all right, I know you can't disclose some of the things that you work with some manufacturers, but flying cars, yay or nay, 5 years?
Well, 5 years may be a little aggressive, but at the same time, there are so many things that 5 years ago we would have probably raised an eyebrow at that we have here today.
Yeah, I mean, we're working in the direction of autonomous vehicles, and vehicles that use so many sensors in order to basically compute how fast you're traveling, how fast you need to travel, the vehicles around you, the environment around you. I think that with that feedback, we're getting closer and closer to say that the vehicle can drive itself. How has that changed your idea of what you guys need to do in order to be responsive to those changes?
We're looking at it from the standpoint of being a stamper. There are more and more components. All of these sensors, require many cases metal components, things like that, casings that surround these components. Also in the fluid handling world, things like that. It's really just a morphing of maybe existing applications. They're actually morphing into something else is what it is. There's systems within the vehicles now that have either evolved and become larger or more complex, or there are brand new systems of car. Just as you described, autonomous driving is here. There's a lot of talk about where we're at. and you're seeing it. And behind the scenes, the level and the speed at which that's evolving, it's unbelievable. I heard it described actually that this has been the fastest and most rapid change in the automotive world, literally since we moved from horse and buggy to car. There's never been a time where there's been such a rapid rate of change and progression. So from our standpoint, what we're seeing, we're really much more involved with our customers and helping develop technologies from a stamping standpoint to suit those new requirements, and it's all happening very quickly. So those thinking outside the box type personalities, boy, that's a great fit in today's world in manufacturing.
With that point, how do we go about recruiting people into our environment and into manufacturing? We're probably not as flashy as some of the other areas. How do we get people excited about coming into our industry? In the Metal Forming magazine not too long ago, they talked about what millennials and such expect when they're interviewing with a company and what they want to see. And some of the things they talked about were that you're a progressive company, that you are doing things technology wise, that you're using more things like tablets, and you're doing more through devices like that, giving them feedback on what they're working on. How do you see that when it comes to recruiting people into your company?
Sure. I think that a big part of it is sharing that big picture. You may be a manufacturing company, and you may only be making one element of a much larger component or an end-use product. And I think a big part of that, and there's a little salesmanship in the process of recruiting, there really is, being able to show the big picture. In many cases, you may, again, have one small component, but I think you need to show that big picture. This one small component is involved or employed in this unit, which in turn is involved in this end product. And I think that's where some of the excitement can be, that knowing that you're actually part of that grassroots of that bigger picture. And I think that the bigger picture needs to be shared. Something can seem mundane on the surface. When you realize the end use and the importance of this, I think that that's a big part of it. And as far as the technology, you're talking about tablets, things like that. One of the things I noted too was being environmentally conscious. A lot of young people are very environmentally conscious. They want to make a difference in today's world. And we share too. There's a lot of things we're doing. You mentioned autonomous driving, group share. That's just something else that's huge and being talked about. There's a big push that a lot of people are very interested in maybe either having limited ownership or non-ownership of vehicles, and actually sharing vehicles, things like that, reducing carbon footprints. Well, we're actually working within an industry that is very much in the forefront of that, and we like to share a lot of that with those either new to manufacturing or young people, the bigger picture of what that is that we're working on and working with end-use customers for those types of things. In addition, all of us here, we're all working with devices all the time, whether it be a tablet. We can actually run and look at manufacturing processes right from any one of our smart devices. This isn't the day of old, where you have charts and papers and things like that. Really manufacturing today, to be a leader and to maintain, you have to be using technology, every bit of it, and really, really leveraging it as much as you can. And we're very open to share that. Again, it's a little salesmanship. You need to go out there and share the big picture with these either new to or young people.
Yeah, I think that from my experience in working with some of the colleges, they very much value you showing them what it is that they're doing. It's not just, okay, you're putting this screw on this bolt and that's the end of it. No, they want to understand their contribution to the bigger picture, how they're making a difference. They want to understand that. I think part of it is valuing their job, is that understanding.
Absolutely. And I think one more thing too is the fact that manufacturing offers so many opportunities. You may start in one facet of manufacturing. It's such a broad spectrum And that's something else too, because especially for a young person, they're looking at maybe, where does this put them in a few years or many years? What's the broader picture here? And if someone can see that manufacture, even grassroots, what that can evolve into, and the career paths, and there's such a broad career path, I think that's makes it much more lucrative.
Yes. Do you think that the millennials want to see the career path that they have available to them? Is that something that you hear from them?
There's so many mixed views on that. Some views are that it's a very short view. I don't believe that. I think this millennial, as it's referred, I think that they're just more conscious. They have a much more broad view of things. Growing up in today's society, you have so much information in front of you. The much bigger picture. And I think where a lot of that is coming from is just a much bigger picture of the world as a whole. We're so interconnected and so linked, and making the world a very small place, actually, when you think of it. And I think that's a bigger part of it, is that picture of where they fit into this big picture. And I think that's what we need to help with, and showing that manufacturing it's not this, again, I keep referring to, but this dark, foreboding environment. This is very much technology, and this is part of a global vision across the planet. All of these things that we're manufacturing and sharing, and we're really shaping the future. And I think that is important to them. I think they have a much broader view of the world as a whole, and I think that is important to them.
Yes. As far as some of the technology that you see out there replacing some of the things that we're doing now, is there anything that you can think of right off the top of your head that you'll be glad to see go away, or a change that will be very welcome in your eyes?
From a manufacturing standpoint, I think just the equipment itself, whether you be manufacturing tooling or actually, in our case, like a stamping process, I just think the machinery itself, there's so much, so much more capable. There's much less human interaction required in many applications. It's much more intelligent equipment, and I think that's a big part of it. Along with that, I think that it helps in the safety factor, which is always very important to everyone. And I think the technology and the equipment itself, as far as the products themselves, I think there again, it's just ever evolving and simplifying. Everything is becoming much more simplified. Very, very manual, tedious, type applications. They've been streamlined now, and I think the technology is helping with that. Really, what it's allowing those individuals in manufacturing themselves, they're really allowed to be more of the inventor, more of the technical leader rather than the mundane, because I think the equipment has advanced so far. So for our standpoint, I think that the machinery and equipment that's being utilized with the manufacturing has really streamlined the actual environment, the working environment itself.
Excellent. Our time is up here. I want to thank Kurt Zipperer, who is Jagemann Stamping. He is the Director of Sales. I want to thank him for his time today. And
thank you for having me again, Dean.
That's been great, and it's been my pleasure. And we appreciate him here at the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. And once again, we thank our host, the Precision Metal Forming Association, for helping us put this on. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.